at the forefront of politics.
Our enemy is Trump. He is the enemy. We got to unite. If we're not a united party, we lose to Trump.
On the front lines of activism.
There's certain fights, if we don't engage, they win. This is a fundamental question of who we are.
And delivering your daily dose of comedy.
Donald Trump, when he had his physical, they had his blood pressure, and mine is higher than his. Oh. And the irony is mine is higher because of him.
From the blue wave.
We flipped enough seats to take control of the House. We control the House.
To 2020 and beyond. This is the Dean Obeidallah Show on Sirius XM Progress, Channel 127.
And welcome to the show, brothers and sisters, Thursday, December 12th. I'm Dean Obeidallah. As always, your needy MBFF in waiting. I hope you're having a good day. There's been so much debate since last night when we left the air. The debate continued in House Judiciary. It's picked up here, and they are inching their way to voting on how the two articles of impeachment in House Judiciary, which it is so belaboring it because it's going to be a party line vote. Why did they just vote this morning and then debate all day? Because we know what the result's going to be. It's like we read the last page of the mystery novel, and now we got to go back and read the other chapters. And the other chapters are the same page every time, written by the Republicans. The same garbage. It doesn't end. It literally is a non-stop deluge of talking points, much of it not based in reality, much of it just lies, and some, if not lies, half-truths or meaningless when it comes to legal or impeachable offenses. But that's where we are. But first, I have to touch on something because I think it's fundamentally important. And that is today, Donald Trump began his day by despicably smearing and attacking 16-year-old climate change activist Greta Thunberg on Twitter. And she was named Time Magazine's Person of the Year earlier this week. And she has autism. She has Asperger's, but which is now actually part of the autism spectrum. And she actually embraces it and calls it her superpower that helps her activism. And I want to tell you slightly about what her form of autism is. So you understand when I read Trump's tweet, it was not just attacking her, a 16-year-old in general. It was specific to autism. That's how vile Donald Trump is. Her condition, the form of autism she has on the spectrum, is marked by a child who shows few emotions often. They may not smile even when happy or laugh or joke. So they can seem emotionless or even angry for no reason, even though they're not. They may speak in flat, robotic kinds of ways. So think of that when I read Donald Trump's tweet this morning to his 60-plus million followers attacking a 16-year-old girl who did nothing except get named Time Magazine Person of the Year. Trump wrote, "So ridiculous. Greta must work on her anger management problem. Then go to a good old-fashioned movie with a friend. Chill, Greta, chill." Forget politics. There's Donald Trump mocking her autism, mocking the fact that she might look unhappy or not joyful like other children because that is one of the signs of Asperger's. It's one of the symptoms. And Donald Trump, forget politics. It's not Democrat. It's not Republican. It's not left nor right nor even in the middle. This is human. Donald Trump is scum. It's that simple. Donald Trump is an embarrassment. He should never have been in this White House. And where is Melania B. Best Trump about her bullying campaign? And just a week ago, they went ballistic when 13-year-old Barron Trump's name was simply invoked at the hearing. Greta's just 3 years older. What did she do other than champion climate change to not only be mocked, but to be ridiculed for her Asperger's by Donald Trump? And it reminds me of during the campaign when Donald Trump mocked the reporter, Serge Kowalski, who's got a condition which makes his hand roll up and he's got a neurological condition, where Donald Trump, and I won't play it because you have to see it, where Donald Trump mocked him for the enjoyment of his crowd. So they could laugh at a disabled man, and today he does this, and his supporters are all supporting it. That's fine. I actually think this should be one of the articles of impeachment. But in any event, Trump is the GOP, and the GOP is Trump, and both are vile, and both of them must be flushed down the toilet 12 to 15 times, because that's how much Trump flushes the toilet, as he told us, when it comes November 3rd, 2020, because we know Donald Trump will not be removed by the Senate. it's going to be us. And on some level, you know what? I don't know about you, but think about it for a second. Wouldn't you rather it be us that removes him? Wouldn't you rather be the ones that we worked hard, we cast the ballots, we win the election, we destroy the GOP, as opposed to the Senate? No, it's going to be us. And I prefer that. I'd be happy if the Senate did their job. I think he should be removed, but they're not going to do it because it's a rigged trial in the Senate. And I mean that objectively rigged, not in the Trumpian way. It's rigged because you need 2/3 of the Senate. You need 20 Republicans. That's not going to happen. So let's take some of the audio from a little bit of last night and some of today. They are literally debating continuing. They began 9 o'clock this morning, began 7 p.m. Eastern time last night, went later into the evening. They picked up at 9 a.m. They've been debating these 2 articles of impeachment ever since. If you turn it on at any time during the day, it's like Groundhog Day. It is literally the people on the right regurgitating the same garbage. And then the Democrats, though, doing a good job today keeping their energy level up, fighting back. And I'll play some clips that kind of summarize what we've seen last night and today. And I want to just say one thing. If we had not worked so hard in November 2018 to win the House back, this would not even be happening. Donald Trump would not be called out. He would not be held accountable. He would not be impeached because Paul Ryan, the Republican House, the doormats would have let him do whatever he wanted, meaning he'd be even more emboldened to levels we have no idea where he'd be going now. So, you could say, is this holding him accountable or not? But maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but it's freaking him out. He tweeted, I think literally, I saw the last count. I'm not kidding, folks. Tweeted and retweeted on Twitter over 80 tweets today. I mean, he is freaking out. And he should. And on some level, that is holding him accountable. So let's start out. Here's Chairman Jerrold Nadler, who's chair of House Judiciary today. And I kind of put these together. The first group of clips I'm going to play are Democrats outlining the wrongdoing of Trump, what's impeachable, and what are actually crimes. And then we'll get into the Democrats destroying the GOP's talking points, which was just great today. Let's start here. Here's Chairman Nadler today on the idea of big picture look. Do we want a dictator? Clip number 1.
The central here is, do we want a dictator? No matter how popular he may be, no matter how good or bad the results of his policies may be, no president is supposed to be a dictator in the United States. And when I hear colleagues of mine arguing that Congress is unpopular and therefore obstruction of Congress is a good thing, this shows terrible ignorance or lack of care for our institutions, for our democracy, for our form of government, for our liberties. I, for one, will protect our liberties, will do everything I can to protect our liberties, our democracy, our free and fair elections, and the separation of powers that says Congress and the president and the judiciary check each other, and nobody can be a dictator.
And that's the goal, is to prevent a dictator. So let's continue. Here's Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee from Texas today talking about the basis to impeach Trump and that there is a legal basis to do so. Here's clip number 2.
First of all, our scholars indicated that these are impeachable offenses. The conduct of the president is impeachable, and there's enough evidence to show. But as I indicated yesterday, this, my friends, is a legal document, the Constitution. It is a legal document. You can breach and violate the law of the Constitution. There are constitutional crimes. And the vastness of the impeachment process does include the excess of power by the President of the United States.
So there was Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. Now I want to play a few clips of Eric Swalwell, who I think is doing a really good job on the committee here. And he had served as a prosecutor before he was elected to Congress. And you get a sense because he breaks this down pretty well. So first you're going to hear Republican Congressman, I think it's Chabot it's pronounced, or Shabbat. It's C-H-A-B-O-T. You'll hear his voice first saying, there's no crimes. There's no violation of any crimes. And then you're going to hear Eric Swalwell's response to that, just cut right after. So let's hear clip number 3, please.
And now the American people know there simply wasn't a crime committed here, and there shouldn't be an impeachment here either.
There are no crimes here. That is the defense my colleagues across the aisle are putting forward. How about the highest crime that one who holds public office could commit? A crime against our Constitution. After all, The Constitution is the highest, most supreme law of the land. Every other law, statutory laws included, derive from the Constitution, not the other way around. The president committed the highest crime against the Constitution by abusing his office, cheating in an election, inviting foreign interference for a purely personal gain, while jeopardizing our national security and the integrity of our elections.
And then he goes through here, and I think this is so important, folks. The facts are not in dispute. There's no alternative version of the facts. There are spin and lies and stuff, but it's not, there's no question Donald Trump asked the Ukrainian president point blank to investigate Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, and work with Rudy Giuliani and Bill Barr to do that because Donald Trump gave us his confession. It's in there. So there's no factual dispute. There's no factual dispute that the aid was withheld, the military aid was withheld for over 2 months, and Trump gave no reason why, and at least suggested that Gordon Sondland, his ambassador, if not told him explicitly, it's being done as leverage. And finally, the aid was released once the whistleblower complaint was, there was a briefing to Donald Trump, and within days of that, they released it. So there's, again, no factual dispute. There's no factual dispute that Gordon Sondland, the ambassador, said Trump told him there'll be no White House meeting for Zelensky from Ukraine unless he announces an investigation of Joe Biden. So you've got these actions demanded from Donald Trump, official actions that he wants from Zelensky, and in return, Trump will give him official actions, which is with releasing aid and a White House meeting, if he investigates Joe Biden. I mean, you've got the elements of bribery. But the key thing is there's no debate on the facts. And here's Swalwell reminding people that. Let's jump to clip number 5, please.
The facts here are not in dispute. Donald Trump abused his power by putting his pure personal gain over our country. Here are the facts. Donald Trump directed Rudy Giuliani to smear his political rival. Donald Trump fired an anti-corruption ambassador who stood in his way. Donald Trump withheld $391 million in aid that was essential to Ukraine. And Donald Trump withheld a White House meeting unless Ukraine's president would do him a favor. In this scheme, Donald Trump was not an incidental player. He was the central player. And anything we don't know about what Donald Trump did is because Donald Trump continues to this moment to block us from knowing. Donald Trump used his office to abuse his power to re-elect himself.
That's it. That's the 50 seconds. Sums up everything here. Trump abused his power to help himself get reelected, used his office, offered official actions in exchange for a personal favor to help his campaign, investigating his Democratic leading opponent. There's no dispute. There's also not one Republican in House Judiciary Committee in the slightest way, not at the slightest way, criticizing these actions. Not even going, I'm troubled by it, but I'm not going to vote to impeach him. That's a different discussion. They can go, you know what, I think it's wrong, but it doesn't rise to the level, in my view, of high crimes and misdemeanors. That's an intellectually honest argument you can make. I would disagree with it, but you can make it. But they're not even doing that. It's as if Trump has done nothing wrong. That he is the perfect president. Not just a perfect call, but he is the perfect president. And here are Democrats destroying GOP talking points because I'll play 3 clips for you, or a few clips for you folks on this, destroying the GOP talking points. And it's been all day. Every time a Republican speaks, they say the same garbage over and over and over again. Here's first David Cicilline about it's laughable that Trump withheld the aid because he was concerned about fighting corruption. Here's clip number 6.
We've just heard our Republican colleagues claim that there was no demand, no conditionality for the release of this aid. And in fact, it was motivated by this president's deep desire to ferret out corruption. That is laughable. The president of the United States had 2 phone calls with President Zelensky. He never once even uttered the word corruption. Because it wasn't about corruption. And the reason we know that is the Department of Defense had already certified that steps had been taken to combat corruption back on May 23rd. And despite that certification, that hold remained in place. In fact, the professionals testified about them trying to figure out How is it possible it's legal to hold this aid? Because the certification is happening, there's no basis to hold it other than the president ordered it. So it's not about corruption. It was about extracting a commitment to announce publicly that they were launching an investigation of President Trump's chief political rival, a smear against Vice President Biden. So this notion that really what happened is the president just satisfied himself that Mr. Zelensky was for real is nonsense.
It's nonsense. It's not, here's the weird thing. And I hope people have been listening for a while. This will sound and resonate as truthful. I've always said when it came to legal issues, I will not play games. I will not be partisan. I will tell you the truth. And I will tell you what the law is, or in this case, the impeachable, the basis for it. And then we can argue over the facts and how do we best present our case. What the Republicans have done today is literally make things up again that are Trump administration talking points. Jim Jordan today literally said that in July 25th, that when Donald Trump was talking to Zelensky, the Ukrainians had no idea the aid was being withheld. That was debunked during the fact witnesses. Now he was called out by Jake Tapper and others on air. Jim Jordan knows that. Jim Jordan was there. He heard the testimony from the Department of Defense person who said on the very day of the phone call, they got an email from the Ukrainians going, hey, what's happening with our aid? They knew it. The aid, $400 million, folks, is not like $400 million to America. That represented 10% of their total military budget, and they're in a hot war with Russia. Of course they were missing $400 million. That's 10% of their budget in a war. So Jim Jordan lied, and I'm glad Jake Tapper and other media outlets just called him out for literally lying. That's what they're doing. They're lying because they've got no facts. And then here's Congresswoman Zoe Lofgren, who talked about, and I think this is such a great point, when did Donald Trump first start caring about Hunter Biden? Clip number 7.
Whatever was going on that people might not like with the vice president's son and the vice president, that was known in 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018. It wasn't until Vice President Biden was beating President Trump in the polls that this issue was raised to try and force a foreign country to invent an investigation to be used politically. That is not seeing that the laws are faithfully executed. That is an abuse of presidential authority.
What the point she made, I think, is so fundamentally important, and the Democrats have not been making this point, nor have they been making the point that I keep making on Twitter and on Joy Reid's show and other places, and people on Twitter like it a lot. I'm not saying it's because I'm a great person who can tweet and I have a big following. I'm saying because it makes common sense. If Donald Trump is concerned about corruption in the Ukraine, that would be fine. If he would say, you know what, I'm a president, I'm not going to give money to a country that has a history of corruption. That's fine. The problem is in 2017, we gave $400 million in aid to the Ukraine under Trump administration. Why didn't he raise corruption then? Why didn't, if Hunter Biden and Joe Biden were so involved in some corrupt enterprise, why didn't you raise it close to the time of Joe Biden having that prosecutor fired? 2017, he didn't. What about 2018? We gave over $300 million to the Ukrainian aid. Not a peep. Trump had no qualms. Money free, no demand for a corruption investigation, no mention of Hunter Biden. July 25th, he brings up Hunter Biden. What happened before that? A few things. And I went back and looked at the polls. The first poll by Fox News, and that's the one that matters to Trump, the very first Fox News poll that had Donald Trump versus Biden head-to-head, March 2019, shows Trump down by 7. Late March 2019. Rudy Giuliani in the timeline, the first time he talks about Hunter Biden, a week and a half later on Fox News. That's the only time, the very first time, this is in the timelines of the articles that go through Rudy Giuliani speaking publicly about Ukraine and Hunter Biden. 2 weeks later, in May of 2019, another poll shows Biden beating Trump now by 11. Another one in June, and I'm only citing Fox News polls, that's all he cares about. June, he's down again by 10 points to Biden. And that's when he begins tweeting, attacking Fox News polls. That's in June. When's the next poll? July 25th, early in the morning, showing he's down by 10. Who does Donald Trump speak to on July 25th, later that morning? The Ukrainian President Zelensky, and brings up Joe Biden. This is simply and only about the campaign. If Donald Trump was talking about corruption investigation in 2017 and 18 and saying, I'm concerned about the Ukraine, you got to revamp it, you got to deal with your corruption problem, or we're not giving your aid, at least he'd have a straight-face argument to make. He doesn't. This is simply about the campaign. We know that. Even Trumpers know that. You know that. Common sense. You've got common sense still, right? You all know that. So I think that's a great point by her. I wish other Democrats would bring up the point to the witnesses, to the Republican witnesses. If you're so concerned about corruption, in 2017, we gave $400 million to the Ukraine. Where was Donald Trump's demand for anti-corruption efforts? They would go, nowhere. 2018, we gave over $300 million. Where was Donald Trump's demand anti-corruption efforts? Look into Burisma and Hunter Biden, whatever else was going on. Nowhere. It only began in July 25th phone call by Donald Trump. That's the first time he articulates it. Because Joe Biden is beating the crap out of Donald Trump in the polls. It's that simple. And now here is something. I want to play these few clips and we'll take calls. We have plenty of time for calls tonight. Here is an appeal by various Democrats to Republicans, pleading with them to please at least acknowledge what Trump has done is wrong. And they can't even get that. Here's Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal. First, here's clip number 8.
Forget about President Trump. Is any one of my colleagues willing to say that it is ever okay for a president of the United States of America to invite foreign interference in our elections? Not a single one of you has said that so far.
Isn't that remarkable? A simple sentence by the Congresswoman there. Not one single Republican on the House Judiciary Committee will even acknowledge that a president asking a foreign leader to investigate his leading political opponent is wrong. They won't even say that because they must have absolute loyalty to Trump, because the slightest crack in the armor of support for Trump, they know what it means. It's tweets and Fox News attacks you. Donald Trump has turned the GOP into his party. It's a party concerned with Trump only. Now here's Congresswoman Karen Bass trying to appeal to Republicans, saying the world is watching. At least think about that. Here's clip number 9.
The actions of this president threatens U.S. national security. The president's defenders shout coup, hoax, and demonstrate their 150% loyalty to the president, while off the record acknowledge his wrongdoing. People from around the world understand this as autocratic behavior. They know if they step out of line, they might lose their lives, or in this instance, they might lose their election. The president has forbidden everyone in the administration from cooperating, even when subpoenaed, leaving the only tool available to us, impeachment. This is not a coup, and it is irresponsible to label a constitutional process a coup. It is the responsibility of this committee to follow the Constitution. The world is waiting to see if we will hold ourselves to the democratic principles we insist that others uphold. Will we demonstrate our ability to peacefully hold our leaders accountable? We have an opportunity to show the world how a mature democracy handles a crisis. We have an opportunity to show the world that our democracy remains strong, and it is this president that is an anomaly. We have an opportunity to demonstrate to the world that in the United States, no one is above the law, including President Trump.
We do have this opportunity, and that's an emotional plea to her fellow members of Congress on the Republican side to say, look at the big picture. The world is watching. We are the United States of America. And after what Trump has done, we no longer stand for what we did before he came in. His immigration policy made it clear. His defense of white supremacy has made it clear what our country is about. His cruelty has made it clear. His cutting aid to those in need has made it clear our country has changed. We're not the same country. And then here's a last plea. And I really like this. Again, Congressman David Cicilline from Rhode Island. He goes on Michael's show a lot. Really an impassioned plea. This is from last night. And here's clip number 10. Let's hear him.
So before I close, I want to speak directly to my Republican friends. Wake up. Stop thinking about running for re-election. Stop worrying about being primaried. Stop deflecting and distracting and treating those you represent as if they don't see what's going on. Like they're not smart enough to realize that you are willfully ignoring the facts to protect a corrupt and dangerous president. Do what you were elected to do. You didn't swear an oath to Donald Trump. You swore an oath to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States. Honor that oath. Reach deep within yourselves to find the courage to do what the evidence requires and the Constitution demands, to put our country above your party. All you have to do is look at the evidence before you, because it will leave you with only one answer. This president must be impeached.
Powerful words by the congressman. And will it move any of them? No. And it's interesting when you hear, and I wanted to play those clips on purpose there together, the sense of Democrats talking to the Republicans about the idea that you're showing more loyalty to Donald Trump than you are to the United States Constitution and to the ideals of this country. And this is a remarkable argument. It's not just one or two Democrats saying, they're saying it over and over again because they see Trump. They see the authoritarian figure that he is. They see a man who wants absolute loyalty, and you will lose your job or at least be attacked on Twitter, and he'll raise money for opponents to primary you at the very least, if not worse. So this is a unique time, and they're still debating right now. If they go to a vote at some point, we might take some of that live. There are 2 articles of impeachment. I have no idea. They're saying the votes. Congressman Hank Johnson, who was great, was going to join us tonight at 6:30. They thought they'd be done. He might join us in the 3rd hour if they're done. If he still has, who knows? They think the votes might be done by 8. They don't know. So if it's done by 8:15 or 8:30, he might join us for a few minutes. He did a great job today, really clapping back at Matt Gaetz. And also, and what I really wanted him on to do, and we might play the clip anyway if he doesn't come on later, he made a civil rights-based argument for impeachment of Donald Trump and talked about people in his district in Georgia who had lived through Jim Crow and the idea of a government that doesn't care about its people and that's lawless, and that they thought those days are gone. But with Donald Trump, they're back. A very powerful argument. I want him to make it. He does a far better job than I am now in paraphrasing him. But, there's a man who was a longtime criminal defense attorney and a magistrate in Georgia before he was elected to Congress. He's been on the show a few times and really hope we can get him, if not maybe tomorrow, to make that very plea and frame this as beyond just impeachment, just beyond left and right, but about a civil rights action. And then in his view, this really is about enfranchising voters the same way the Voting Rights Act did, the same way the fight against Jim Crow did. So let's take a break, come back. You're my guest right till 7 o'clock. Then we'll have a guest at 7 for a little bit. Then we'll have a lot more time, a lot of time for phone calls tonight. It's an historic night. If they vote this out of the committee, then what we understand is someday next week, we're not sure when, maybe Monday, more likely Tuesday or Wednesday, it's all very likely they will vote to formally impeach Donald Trump. So 866-997-4748. Love to hear from you. Give me a call. What do you think about what we've heard so far? Are you happy with the Democrats' performance? Did you want something else out of them, like more articles of impeachment, as I discussed yesterday and the day before? Or are you happy with what you're seeing? Be right back after this.
Dean Obadala Show on Sirius XM Progress 120.